Aren't these some sweet looking raised beds? Orienting the metal roofing vertically makes these much sleeker looking and worthy of being a focal point anywhere in the yard, back, or even in the front. A complete material list and cut diagram will be upcoming momentarily. Freeze and copy or snap a screenshot for future reference. The build begins with all the parts pre-cut. As a bonus, especially for beginner woodworkers, I have included a pocket hole jig tutorial within the build. Follow my instructions and make careful cuts, and you too can make some great looking raised beds for your garden area.
All right, we got our stock all cut here. We got our long pieces for the long sides. We got the pieces for the short sides, the top and the bottom. We have our upright supports. And we have our seating area supports. So now what we need to do is take all of these upright supports, every one of these, and we need to put pocket holes in them. We need to put 2 here, 2 here, then we're going to flip them over and put 1 right in the center of each side. So that way each upright support, each upright brace, if you want to call them a brace, will have 3 pocket hole screws on the top and 3 on the bottom. And each side is going to get 3 of these. Okay, we have to support the seating area. And I have a Harbor Freight Drill Master pocket hole jig set up here. All I did here was screw this onto a 2x6 and I put it onto a workmate. If you put a crevice tool and you put it right in that slot right there, it fits right in there, and that sucks out all the chips, or at least enough of the chips so you can set your board square against the face here. I've done a few of these already. I've noticed that on this pressure treated lumber, depending on the moisture level, the thicknesses vary. So when you're setting your clamp here, you don't want to set it so that it's tight, and you're going to risk breaking this here. So what I've done is played around with this a little bit, and it works on just about every one of them. Some are extra tight, and if they're extra tight, I don't just slam it down, because I think that's going to break this cam action. And what I do is just press onto it and then drill my holes. I'll hold it, then I'll drill. Okay, the ones that are loose, if they're a little bit loose, I'll hold the lumber up here against it. All right, so it's not a big deal. With kiln dried lumber, this is going to work much better, but with pressure treated, because of the thickness differences, if you want to go ahead and adjust every one, it's going to take you forever. So I just modified it, putting the pressure on if it's too thick, and just holding it a little bit if it's too thin. I'm going to set this in, eyeball it so it's even. Now I have my hole set up 1 inch from center, so that gives 3/4 of an inch from the center to the edge of the board. So that one clamps right in. A little bit of pressure here, not a ton of pressure. It holds it. So I'm going to go ahead and drill those. If you've never used the pocket hole jig, you want to make sure your drill bit is in the collar, okay, before you start your drill. And you notice that I'm backed off a little bit as I drilled. I want to clear some of those chips instead of just driving them forward. And I'm going to go ahead and drill the rest of these with the vacuum running. Now, if you don't have one of those fancy jigs that I just showed you, Craig does make, and other companies do make, some smaller ones, small, very portable ones that you can clamp on, or you can hold them with your hand. I'm gonna go ahead and show you a smaller type. It's a Craig, and we'll drill some pocket holes with that. So here's the Craig pocket hole jig. This is very inexpensive. I have it set up for 1.5 inch lumber, 2 holes, and I'll go ahead and show you how I use this one. This one here, once you get it all set up correctly, you place it on your board, like that, and you can clamp it, or you can hand hold it. I hand hold it, but when you hand hold, you want to cup your hand a little bit. The chips do come out the top, and they're probably going to get packed in there a little bit. So it's a little bit more unhandy than the jig I showed you a minute ago. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold my jig, put my drill bit into the collar, start it when it's inside, hold it tight. And there we have 2 pocket holes. They look a little different, and I'll compare them to the other ones. They look a little different than the Drill Master from Harbor Freight, but they're doing the same exact thing. This is the Craig, that's the Drill Master. All right. Now you notice here, the holes are kind of clogged up. Now this doesn't clog up as bad with kiln dried lumber, but with pressure treated, it's damp, it's wet. So I just have a little poker and to poke those shavings out. Right? Now I need to turn my board around, put my jig on again, hold it like this. And what you're doing is you're holding it from tipping up and from sliding forwards away from you. Okay? That's what's going to happen. It's going to want to pull up in the front, and it's going to want to push backwards. You can see packed in there again. A lot of it has to do with my hand covering it, but it also has to do with the moistness of the chips. Okay. Now with this Craig, I can just flip this over and drill my center hole. And what I'm going to do is just use one of these holes. Now you can take this apart so you only have one section, but that's just like a waste of time to me. So I'm just going to center it like that, hold it, and drill my hole. And there we go. So I got the 2 on this side and the 1 on that side. This Drill Master jig has it all set up here. It's all marked on the side. You use these holes here for 1.25 to 1.5 inch lumber. And this setup here changes the angle. 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch lumber. This drill bit is from Craig. It's got a nice hole in the locking collar that shows you 1.5 inch. So you're going to use, I don't know, maybe you can see that right there, maybe. So you're going to use that for 1.5 inch, and you have a 3/4, and you also have a 1 inch spot. So you change the collar, the drill bit length, depending on what kind of lumber you're using. Now, like I said, this is a Craig drill bit. Set where it's supposed to be for Craig actually works really nice. It doesn't go too deep on the Drill Master. Perfect. Right? So now what I got to do is set this thing up for one hole right in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen my front wheel here. And I'm just going to slide one of these jig pieces over until it sets right up here at 0. Now you notice that's got a nice slot right in here. So it can slide right over that. You can slide right over that screw tightener right here. Before I turn my vacuum back on, I'll just set one of these up. So you're gonna put your lumber in right here. Again, center it, find something. I'm just centering down here on the base. You can see it's just overhanging a little bit on each side. Tighten my clamp in the back. There we go. Every upright gets 6 pocket holes. 2, 1 centered behind them. Okay, when I get these finished, we'll start assembling the sides. Got all the uprights for the 4 raised beds all pocket holed here. And over here we got one of the long sides laid out. We have a long top, the long bottom, and remember we said we're going to use 3 of the uprights in each one of these. When you're putting these together, I've seen people using squares on this, and I'm not sure why they're using square, because you don't have much of a choice. Once you draw these tight, that's what you're going to have. So it's really imperative that you're cutting these at really good 90-degree angles. All right, so we're just going to even up the edge over here on this side, and we're going to tighten these in. When you use really good 90-degree angle cuts, it's really close to being square anyhow. Now these are actually Craig screws. They're made for 1.5-inch lumber. So when I put these in, they're going to draw tight and they're not going to come out the other side. Even if I use the Harbor Freight Drill Master jig, it's still going to work fine. But make sure your screws match the thickness of your lumber. Right? You don't want to go longer and you don't want to go shorter. Make sure they match. They're going to say 4.5-inch lumber. Right? It'll tell you right on the package what they're for. I'm just going to hold this by hand. Make sure everything's nice and flat. Put some good pressure on it. And forget your battery in your tool. Now I have this on the second setting here on my DeWalt 12-volt impact driver. I love these 12 volts. They're nice and light. They're not bulky. And they have the power to do this kind of stuff, no problem. Now I want a good flat surface, nice cement floor. And you can hear the difference in tone once you start tightening up. You'll hear the impact make a different sound. And that's when you're actually tightening up against the wood in your, right here in this piece of lumber. When you start hearing it torque down a little bit. So there you go. Even on that side. Now this middle brace, just center it. So if mine is 74 inches long, I'm going to center at 37. I do have a bow in my long board right here, you can see it. I just got to make sure I press that down as I'm screwing this together. Got the 2-hole pocket screw side done. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the 1-hole pocket side. Alright, the pocket hole screws are all done. I have one last step, which is put the support in for my top seating area. The top trim board, which is going to be wide. we saw it on our completed box, is going to be wide enough you can just sit down for a second if you want to weed or plant or whatever you want to do. But it's going to need a little bit of support. So I'm just going to put a support block in just like that. I'll center it between here and the end, and I'll do one over there also. And I'm going to be using 3-inch deck screws. Now I'm going to angle these a little bit because the total thickness over here is 3 inches. And I want to inset them a little bit. So I'm going to just put a little bit of a angle on them as I put them in. Got to find the center here. So we got 31 1/4, that'd be 15 1/2 plus 1/8. So 15 5/8. And I'll just eyeball that. Again, none of this is going to be seen. So I'm just going to make sure that's about 15 1/8, or 15 5/8, I mean, to the center. I want to make sure this is nice and flush over here, which it is. That was jiggly, wasn't it? Right, I'll go ahead and put that one in. Then I'll check the square on this, see how good we are. Got both of my supports in. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull diagonals here and see how close we are. 76 11/16. Let's see what we got here. 76 10/16. Like I said, I'm using a compound miter saw, and I'm making sure these are perfect 90s here. And if they're perfect 90s and this lumber's halfway decent where I'm putting them together, they're going to be pretty darn square when it's all done. Got all 4 sides done. The short sides are basically the same exact as the long sides. I just used a shorter brace right here for the top trim piece for the seat. Oh, made it to New York with all the materials for Katie's raised bed garden. Got it all unloaded out of the truck. This is everything, remember, for 4 raised beds. So I got one just propped up here, ready to go. Got the metal for the sides, got the metal for the corners. Have an arbor. Got the top seats, all the side pieces, end pieces for the raised beds, legs, and over here we have some bracing for the corners. And all the materials we need to put these together. Okay, to start assembling these, I'm going to go ahead and clamp each corner as I work on it. I have the short ends, the widths, within this end here. The width of the metal is 36 and something inches. So I have 37 inches here. So it leaves me some edge here. It's going to be 2 5/16 by 4-inch structural screws. One here and one at the bottom. Okay, here's the screws we're using to put the beds together. They're 5/16 by 4-inch structural screws. Really strong. They have a star drive head on them. We're going to use an impact driver to drive them in. But before we drive the screws in, we're going to drill pilot holes through the outside piece. I'm using a 1/4 inch spade bit. 5/16 bit would work also. I'm only drilling through one layer of the lumber. I'm not drilling into where the threads are going to grab. That doesn't need to be pilot holed. But I want to drill the outside layer because I don't want it to split. We're going to drill through this outside edge here. And I only got 1.5 inches, so I can't drill in the center. I have to drill 3/4 inches from the edge because this here is only 1.5 inches. And I'm going to drill as close as I can to my pocket screw hole The pocket screws are going this way, so this is not going to interfere. You don't want to drill up here. You don't want to interfere with that pocket screw. Okay. Okay, now we got that pilot hole drilled. I'm going to go ahead and use my structural screw and put it in there. And that'll draw it as tight as you want because you're going into a good grain. Just don't spin it. You don't want to strip it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do the other 4 corners, clamping each corner as I go, drilling my pilot holes, screwing it together. I'm not worried about square right now. It doesn't matter. We got the box assembled. Now we're going to go ahead and check square. I have 83 3/8, and I've got 82.5. That means that this corner is longer, so we're just going to kick this in and make that diagonal shorter. Now we'll pull the diagonal again. I have 83. And just shy of 83. We're going to call that good for now. Now we're going to put our corner bracing in. This corner bracing is just a 2x4. And what I've done, I cut 45-degree angle on it. Then I flipped it and I cut another 45-degree angle on it, just barely touching this tip right here. So that way I don't have to measure anything. I'm just flipping on my miter saw, cutting the 45, flipping it over, cutting the 45, so that the tips up here, I'm not cutting anything extra or leaving anything but a tip. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's going to go in just like that. And we're going to draw that together and square this up. But before we do that, this wood here may be dry. So I'm going to pre-drill some holes so that I don't split this. So what we're going to do is we're going to pre-drill right through here so we can use some 3-inch screws diagonally right into our cross members here. And here's a 3-inch screw right there, and you can see that if I drill right there, it's going to draw in right here. That's all I want to do, is put that in just like that. Okay. And you can see how I marked those. I'm going to give these to my faithful assistant, Katie, and she's going to go ahead and pre-drill all of these as I'll do the first 4. I can get this done. While I'm working on that, she's going to go ahead and pre-drill 12 more of these for my other beds. Okay, so we're going to drill right along that black line, and I'll give her this as a guide, and she can drill her holes. Just try to keep this as flush as you can here. You don't want it high. If anything, you want it low. That corner looks really good. We just finished the 4 corner braces. Now we're going to pull the diagonals again, see how much that messed up our squareness. I got 83 3/16. Yep, so that side is long still. So we're just going to tap that and see if I can't get it back to square. And then we'll flip it over and put the legs on. Okay, that looks good. We're going to flip it, put the legs in. Okay, here's the legs that we're using. Only using these legs to help level the beds in the garden. So if your garden is nice and flat, or it's nice and level, you wouldn't need these legs. But the 4 legs give you only 4 points that you need to work with when you're leveling something this big. So right now, I don't need these legs if my bed was going on this driveway. Because it's square, it's level. I don't need to level the bed. But because the place that we're putting this is not perfect, there's little bumps in the lawn and everything, it's going to be so much easier to level the entire bed with the 4 corners, rather than try to level 18 feet of edging around this whole thing. And I have a little bevel on the top here. These were 8-inch 4x4s, where I cut a 15-degree angle right here, just so it can shed water a little easier. So they're going to go in, and I got this flipped over, so this is the bottom now. This is the bottom of the bed. So this is going to go in like this and only stick out here a couple inches. I hope that makes sense. Again, if your area was nice and level, or it didn't matter if it was perfectly level, then you wouldn't need these legs. But I need it perfectly level because we have the arbor being attached to 2 of these beds. We're going to have a bed here, a bed over here, 4 feet in between them, and it needs to be perfectly level for that arbor to look nice. I'm going to use those 4-inch structural screws in these again. Same exact screws that I used over here. Okay, when you put these in, make sure this doesn't slope towards the bed. Make sure it slopes away. So that's fine, that's fine. That's no good. It's sloping right towards it. Everything's going to drain into here. So you want it that way or that way. Okay, not towards the bed. So we're just going to attach that in there, 2 inches. I'm going to measure 2.5. I changed my mind. I'm going to leave 2.5-inch legs. Now I don't feel the need to pre-drill these because I am a good 3 inches off the edge. But if this was really dry lumber, I would probably go ahead and pre-drill. But this lumber is not that dry. And you can see, come over here and look at the gap right here. You see that gap? You also see this is not perfectly lined up here. That's because this needs to draw down. So what I need to do here is put this in right there. And while I'm doing this, Katie's going to push on this really hard and draw this in. Oh, this way, the other way. Yep.
This way?
Yep. Real hard. Oh, that's going to be hard to do. Keep going. A little more. Got it? A little more. Go, go, go. And look what it did. It drew that in. So just when you're doing this, if these warped a little bit as they dried, if you're not doing this in one day, make sure you're getting those nice and square. That's why I put those lines on there. Not only to show my 2.5 inches, but to make sure everything was good. We have our 4 legs on. Now Katie's going to flip this over back onto its legs. Then we're going to go ahead and put our trim board on around the top. Okay, my faithful assistant Katie's going to flip this over. Okay, got 83 that direction. And let's see what we got on this direction.
A little under 83.
A little under 83, and I'm going to show you why. It's right there because this corner has been knocked off and it's not perfect. Just want to make sure this is square as possible before you put these on, because if this is not square, the last one of these you put together, the last miter that you put on, is not going to be looking good. So do it as good as you can here, so this looks good when you're finished with those. Now I have to measure over here. I do have to measure under here because the reveal here is going to be the same all the way around. So right now I'm just seeing how close they are. So you can see up underneath here, this is going to overhang this because our metal panels are going to come down here, and we don't want those ridges and things to gather any junk. So this is going to cover that metal panel. What makes this bed unique from all the other ones that you've seen, remember, is our metal's going to go on this way. It's not going to go on like you see in most of these videos where the piece of metal is put on lengthwise. These are going to be put on just like they would be on a wall. So you want to cover these gaps. You see them right here? The ridges. So that's why this is oversized. Okay, I've dry fitted my tops. I have this constructed so it's 1 3/8 overhang. Right, so this was all measured out for 1 3/8 reveal underneath. That'll hide. That 1 3/8 will hide this and give you a little extra over the top. You don't want to get cut on this metal. So that's all raw edge is going to be covered up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take some 2.5-inch deck screws and we're going to screw this top down. All right. And we have the extra supports here, there, in the center here. We also have the support in the corners that we can get that. And don't worry about if these are perfect when you're done. They're never going to be perfect because you're working with pressure treated lumber. Pressure treated lumber is going to dry. It's going to cup a little bit. You know, it's never going to be perfect. So if you get it looking nice, put a stain on here, it's going to look sharp. Yeah, we already talked about the 1 3/8 overhang here, but I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to get this close while you're setting these up. If you check right here, see the corner? If I put that right on the corner like that, can you see that? See a little spider there too, right? But if you check that out, it's right on the corner. And if you come down this end, it's right on the corner. See that? So then you can adjust it a little bit. But if you go corner to corner like this, this is going to be very close as you're setting this up. Then you can adjust a little bit if you want to get your corners nice and tight. 2.5-inch deck screws, just regular exterior deck screws. We're going to screw it right down into our cross member. And then we're going to put a couple in each of those braces underneath. Like one here and one here. One here and one here. Right along the edge here. And then we'll put the other one on and we'll go ahead and get this done. And again, I should be in the center of that cross member. I'm just going to tack that. I'm not going to tighten that down because I'm going to be able to loosen these up if I want to get my corners nice and tight. Come down this end. And we'll tack that one in. Now let's go ahead and put this one in, tack it in. You ever made picture frames, you always know if it's not perfect. Oh, I got 3 of them perfect. It's always that 4th one, right? That's where it's going to show up, because you have cumulative error. So if this was 44.98 degrees, you're going to have cumulative error all the way around your frame. Doesn't that look nice? So my faithful assistant Katie now is going to go ahead and put screws in all the way down through here. And we're going to tighten this up probably with another 20 screws or so. Katie put these screws in about 10 or 11 inches apart. Okay, you can see them here. I went around behind her, and she was making sure the miters were tight. I went around behind her, and I put a screw into each miter edge like this. Remember that corner brace that we had underneath? I'm screwing into that. Now over here, remember that extra brace we put along the rails? I'm putting a screw, 2 screws into the long ones, one here and one here. One here and one here. Here's the screws Katie put in. And these are the screws I'm coming up behind her with for that extra bracing and the corners. It's really looking sharp. Look at those corners. And if you use my measurements and you cut exactly, you can have a raised bed looking this sharp yourself. I flipped our bed onto its side. That's going to give me a nice surface here to rest my metal on. I'm going to push my metal right up against the top here. That's just a cover sheet to keep it protected. And there's what the metal we decided on was a galvalume metal. It's a galvanized finish. And we're going to lay that on correctly. And I'm going to go left to right with it. And this is the piece, this is the down piece. That's got the flange on it. Let's look at the other end. Notice it's just the ridge. There's no flange here. I'm going this direction. So I'm going to put this one on first. The next one overlaps this one, so this piece is underneath the next ridge. So I'm going to get another piece, put it on top of this, see what it looks like. Or there's the flange. Make sure that's going to the right hand side every time if you're working left to right. Now the coverage on this metal is 72 inches or 36 inches a piece. So 2 will cover 72. They're a little bit longer than 36 because you have the overlap. So I'm going to look over here and push this down a little bit. And there it is. So I'm right here on the edge here. I can go a little bit more this way. So I'm going to put it right there. Let's check down here, move this one over. And look what we got. Right along the edge with the ridge. This ridge is right along the edge. The flange is sticking out a little bit. Don't worry about it. That's not a problem. Okay, that's going to be fine. Now we're going to go ahead and screw that down. Now when you're screwing this down, we're going, because we're working left to right here, I'm going to put a screw here here. I'm going to the right hand side as I work down through here. And what that does, when I get down to where the overlap is, see the overlap right here? When I get down to that spot, it's actually going to screw onto that second sheet and hold that end of that first sheet. Just like that, so it goes here. Don't screw on this side, and it won't hold it. It doesn't do, you're not doing it correctly. All right, so again, working left to right, I'm putting it right on the edge. This is standard 36-inch metal roofing. So it's going to have a coverage of 72 inches from side to side when you put two together. So we're going to go right to the edge here. We're going to screw on the right hand side of each ridge. One screw right there, 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 and so on. Get to where it doubles up. It's going to be on this side so it holds the first one down. We're going to go right on down here. Then on this end, you don't have any room over here, so we're going to put it on the opposite side of the ridge. Now here's the metal self-tapping screws. They have a rubber washer on them. These are just roofing screws for metal roofing. I decided to go with almond. You can get color match. I'm going to use almond here. Not because I think almond's a great looking color, but I had a whole bag of these from another project. I didn't want to go and buy another $25 bag of screws. So that's going to go there. We're going to put one there. And when you torque these down, you don't have to torque them down. Just torque them in so they're tight. Don't squish your rubber washer. Okay, you don't want to squish it out the edges. Just want to torque it down so it's nice and snug. Try to get a good view here for you. When you're putting those screws in, just snug them up a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of practice. If you've never done these before, you're going to want to over tighten them. And if you over tighten them, you squish out the washer. See that one? I just did that one on purpose so you see. That one's good. Bad. I'm just over here 3/4 of an inch from the ridge. Some people just quickly just put it right in the center, but I like to go a little closer to the ridge than center. And we're going to go right down the line here and put those in. Okay, we got all our screws in. Now I'm going to tip this over. So we're going to do the other long side. Then we'll do the short side. The short side is just one piece of this 36-inch roofing metal. That's going to look really nice, isn't it? We just tilted it up so we have the ends available without having to bend down. We have the metal all the way around our raised bed. Looks really good. Now what we're using for the corners is called gable trim. Gable trim would go along the peaks of a house with metal roofing, and it's also corner trim, so it does double duty. Now if you're going to build these raised beds, you're not going to probably find these parts in like Home Depot or Lowe's unless you order them. But if you have metal roofing suppliers in your area, and there's a lot of areas that do now, you're going to be able to find a lot of trim pieces like this. So here's what it looks like. It's called gable trim. Here's the end. And I cut them all 19.5 inches long. And they're going to go on just like... And they sit on just like that. Nice and flat. See the flanges? They sit nice and flat. We're going to put a screw there, a screw here, a screw down the bottom, and a screw up top, and that's going to hold it together. That looks pretty sharp, doesn't it? Set your clutch setting on your drill. If you set it correctly, you're not going to squish your washer out, and you don't have to worry about tapping your trigger and getting this perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and put those 4 screws in. I think doing these raised beds with these ridges vertical like this make them so much nicer looking than the ones that are put on lengthwise. You're just not going to be able to find this 36-inch metal roofing at your big box stores usually, unless you order it in. But if you have a metal If you have a metal roofing fabrication company near you, definitely the trick to go. All my galvanized finished here was cut 19.5 inches long. That was right from the plant. I had to cut the corners because they come 10 foot 2 inches long, but I cut those myself with tin snips. Those were cut at 19.5, just like the siding. Again, thanks for coming along. I appreciate your time. Hope you give this build a try. I think it looks a little bit nicer than the other ones that I've seen on YouTube. We'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.